One of the hardest things about dealing with disrespectful people is that it feels personal. It cuts deep, whether it's a sharp comment, a dismissive tone, or someone talking over you, it strikes at your sense of dignity. And when that happens, the natural human reaction is to fire back, to match their tone, to remind them you're not someone to be messed with. That urge comes fast, almost like a reflex. But here's the thing, when you react emotionally, you hand them the keys to your peace of mind. You let their behavior dictate your response. And in that moment, you've lost control of the one thing you should always protect yourself. Handling disrespect starts with learning the difference between reacting and responding. A reaction is instinct. A response is choice. The disrespectful person wants your reaction. They thrive on it because it validates their behavior. But when you pause, when you hold your composure, when you slow down enough to think instead of just feel, you shift the entire balance of power. Suddenly, they're not in control anymore. You are. Think about it this way. If someone throws fire at you and you throw fire back, all you've got is a bigger fire. But if someone throws fire at you and you stay calm, you starve the flames. You deny them the satisfaction of seeing you rattled. And that does two things. It keeps your dignity intact, and it forces them to wrestle with the weight of their own actions. People expect drama when they disrespect you. They're prepared for the pushback. But what they're not prepared for is silence, composure, or a calm response that cuts through their noise. That catches them off guard every single time. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. Controlling your emotions in the heat of the moment takes discipline. It takes practice. Because your body is wired for fight or flight. Your heart races, your chest tightens, your mind fills with 100 things you want to say. But this is where self-mastery comes into play. The smartest way to handle disrespect is to remind yourself, this is not about me. This is about them. Their words reflect their character, not yours. And once you see it that way, their power over you shrinks. Think about the times in your life when you lost your cool. Maybe you snapped back, maybe you said something you regretted. In the moment, it felt justified, but later it left you drained, maybe even ashamed because you realized you let someone else pull you out of alignment with yourself. That's the cost of reacting emotionally. You lose twice. You lose in the moment, and you lose in the reflection afterward. But when you respond intentionally, you win twice. You keep your self-respect in the moment, and you walk away later with peace, knowing you didn't let someone drag you down to their level. There's a kind of quiet strength in composure. It doesn't yell. It doesn't posture. It doesn't need to prove itself. Composure says, I see what you're doing, but I refuse to give you control over me. And that is far more powerful than any comeback you could throw at them. Because comebacks might sting for a second, but composure lasts. It stays with you. It builds your reputation as someone who doesn't bend under pressure, who doesn't get tossed around by every rude comment or cheap insult. You've probably heard the saying, don't wrestle with pigs. You'll both get dirty, and the pig likes it. That's what emotional reactions are. Disrespectful people want you to wrestle with them. They want the chaos and the dirt, the drama. That's their fuel. And the moment you step into that arena, you've already lost. But when you stand still, when you keep your voice steady, when you let your silence or your calm words speak louder than your emotions, you win without even fighting. This doesn't mean you have to accept mistreatment. Staying calm isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's knowing that the first move is to hold yourself together, to ground yourself before you decide what action, if any, to take. Because the reality is some disrespect requires a response. Sometimes you do have to speak up. But the key is to do it from a place of strength, not anger. Anger clouds judgment. Strength brings clarity. So before you speak, breathe. Before you answer, pause. That moment of stillness might be the most powerful tool you have. Philosophers like the Stoics talked about this centuries ago. They said, you cannot control what others do, but you can control how you respond. That's timeless wisdom. It's the foundation of emotional intelligence. And it applies everywhere, at work, at home, in friendships, even with strangers. The disrespect will come. You can't stop it. But you can decide how much of yourself you're willing to lose in the process. I want you to picture this the next time someone disrespects you. Imagine you're standing in a storm. The wind is wild, the rain is heavy, and the lightning is loud. That storm is them, their words, their attitude, their disrespect. You can't stop the storm, but you don't have to become the storm. You can be the calm center, the stillness that refuses to be shaken, because storms always pass. And when it's over, the one who stayed grounded is the one who walks away with their peace intact. So the question isn't, how do I make them stop disrespecting me? The real question is, how do I make sure I don't disrespect myself in the process? Because every time you lose control, you sacrifice a piece of your self-respect. But every time you hold your composure, you build it. You strengthen it. And over time, that strength becomes unshakable. At the end of the day, the smartest way to handle disrespectful people is to refuse to let them rewrite your story. You are the author of your response. You decide whether their words become fuel for anger or a reminder of your own discipline. And when you choose discipline, when you choose calm over chaos, you not only protect yourself, you set a standard for how others should treat you. So the next time disrespect comes your way, don't take the bait. Don't hand over your peace. Take a breath, stand tall, and remember, a calm response is the loudest message you can send, because real strength isn't in how loud you can shout back. It's in how deeply you can stay rooted when the world tries to shake you. When it comes to dealing with disrespect, staying calm is only half the battle. The other half is knowing where to draw the line. Because if you don't set boundaries, people will keep testing you. They'll keep pushing, and before long, you'll find yourself accepting behavior you never should have tolerated in the first place. Boundaries aren't about building walls to shut people out. They're about drawing a line in the sand that says, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. And this is what I will not allow. And here's the truth. If you don't set that line, someone else will set it for you. And usually, it won't be in your favor. Disrespectful people don't wake up one morning and suddenly become respectful. If they've learned that you'll put up with their tone, their sarcasm, or their dismissiveness, they'll keep serving it to you. Why? Because there's no consequence. And in relationships, whether personal or professional, people rise or sink to the standard you set. But here's where most people get it wrong. They confuse boundaries with aggression. They think setting a boundary means shouting, slamming doors, or delivering some dramatic speech about how much you won't tolerate. That's not strength. That's noise. Real boundaries are calm, consistent, and unapologetic. It's saying, without raising your voice, I don't accept being spoken to like that. It's choosing not to engage in conversations where you're belittled. It's walking away when respect isn't given. Boundaries aren't about punishing someone else. They're about protecting yourself. The reason boundaries feel uncomfortable is because we're afraid of what will happen if we enforce them. What if they get angry? What if they leave? What if they think I'm overreacting? And underneath those fears is a deeper one, the fear of losing connection. Humans crave acceptance. We're wired for it. That's why we let disrespect slide sometimes, because calling it out feels like we're risking rejection. But here's the paradox. Every time you let someone cross your boundaries, you're rejecting yourself. You're abandoning your own worth in order to keep someone else comfortable. And that kind of trade-off never ends well. So let's look at this from a psychological angle. Disrespect isn't just about words or actions. It's about patterns. When someone disrespects you once, that's an event. When they do it repeatedly, that's a pattern. And patterns only change when you change the rules of engagement. Boundaries are the rules. They're the unspoken contract that says, if you want access to me, my time, my energy, my presence, this is the standard you have to meet. And if they can't meet it, that's not your loss. That's their limitation. But here's something important. Boundaries aren't just for them, they're also for you. They keep you accountable to your own values. If you set a boundary and then bend every time someone tests it, the boundary loses meaning. It's like locking your front door, but leaving the key under the mat. Boundaries require consistency, and consistency requires courage, because it's not always easy to hold firm when someone pushes back. But every time you do, you reinforce to yourself that your worth isn't negotiable. Philosophically, this ties back to the idea of self-respect. Respect isn't something you demand from others. It's something you model. It's something you embody. And when you live with self-respect, people notice. They may not like it, but they notice. And that awareness forces them to make a choice. Either step up and meet your standard or step aside. Both outcomes serve you because both protect your dignity. Think about the relationships in your life where respect flows naturally. Those relationships don't drain you, they energize you. Why? Because you don't have to fight for basic decency. It's already there. Now compare that to relationships where you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, constantly wondering if you're asking for too much. That's not healthy. That's not respect. That's survival. And if you're stuck in survival mode with someone, boundaries are your way out. Sometimes the boundary is verbal. A simple statement like, "I'm not okay with that," said calmly, is enough. Sometimes the boundary is action, choosing not to respond, choosing not to engage, choosing to leave the room. And sometimes the boundary is distance, deciding that this person no longer deserves the same level of access to you. Notice none of these require anger. None of them require disrespect in return. Boundaries are powerful precisely because they don't rely on the other person changing. They rely on you holding your line. Now let's be real. Setting boundaries will cost you. Some people won't like it. Some may get defensive. Some may call you cold or difficult. But that discomfort is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're breaking a pattern they've grown used to. And that resistance, that's proof that your boundary is working. The people who truly respect you will adjust. The people who don't will distance themselves. And either way, you win. The smartest way to handle disrespect is not to fight it head on, but to create conditions where it can't survive. And those conditions are created by the boundaries you set. Boundaries say, I don't have to control you. I only have to control what I allow in my space. That's where your power is. Not in changing them, but in protecting you. When you think about it, boundaries are a form of freedom. They free you from resentment because you no longer carry the weight of someone else's behavior. They free you from confusion because you've made the standard clear. And they free you from self-betrayal because you're no longer abandoning yourself just to keep the peace. Boundaries give you back your time, your energy, your clarity, and that's a kind of wealth that disrespectful people can't touch. So the next time someone disrespects you, don't just stay calm, set the line. Decide where your respect begins and where their access ends. Because at the end of the day, people treat you the way you allow them to. And when you set boundaries without apology, you're not just handling disrespect, you're teaching the world how to treat you. And that's the real power, to walk away from any interaction knowing that no matter what they did, you never abandoned yourself.